Hello, everyone. How's it going? This is Matt here at Draft to the Future. Welcome to another episode. Looks like I jumped in a little late. I stepped on my own auto, which is awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Draft to the Future. We finally settled on a name. That's going to be our website's name, and we're going to start working on generating more content. But we're still kind of recovering from the speed we got going on all this. So this is something I mentioned in a previous video that I had done, and this is me wanting to share that data with all of you and to just kind of get a little more content out there before we started really meeting and perpetuating and kind of moving the channel for growth purposes and that sort. So in this context, what I wanted to do was share this. So what I went ahead and did is I started like I always do with a question. Like I said earlier when I talked about a quarterback and what should you expect from a first round quarterback? What is actually true historically, so that you can have expectations that are based on like historical fact rather than hoping. Everyone hopes for the best from every prospect, but ultimately you're trying to identify what you want, what you're hoping the team will do. So what I did was I created a formula, more on that in a minute, a formula that quantifies a draft class to find out what the average NFL is for a draft class in terms of success and who performs a little lower, who performs a little higher, who's done outstandingly. So I said a formula because, well, how do you quantify it? I think a lot of people can come up with various ways. And if you got ideas, you can let me know in the chat or in the comments. If you're watching this after the video posts, you can present your own data. And if it's something measurable, if it's something that we can look into, then we can either add it to this formula or revisit this. But in order for me to quantify this, I had to come up with some sort of system. So I want to start by telling you how I came up with this system. So if you're curious, I'm looking at the Cardinals right now. They have not been historically successful. I went back 5 years for every team in the NFL. I went back and looked at their draft classes. I did not look at undrafted free agents. This is a draft evaluation. The idea is you draft guys you believe in. You take unrestricted free agents or guys you bring in and you think they might be able to contribute or have a chance, but this is all about the draft, not about UDFAs. So I went back for every team for 5 years. And in that search, and I just want to check here and there, in that search, I'm going to go to the actual screen. I created this score ranking. So if you drafted someone in 2020 and they are still in the NFL, I gave you a half point because you drafted someone and they're still in the league, they're still relevant. Whatever success level they've had, you drafted someone who is still playing in the league. The next level up, if that person is still on your team, then not only did you draft someone who's still in the NFL, but they're on your team and they're contributing. And I figured that was valuable because that means you're growing your team through the draft. You're building your team through the draft. You're getting core pieces for your team. If you then extended those individuals, and I'll touch on that a little more, but let me first explain this one. If you extended them, then that means you drafted them. They've been playing well, and whether they're starting for you or not, they're at least people you want to remain on your team. They're pieces you want to hold on to. So you drafted someone, and they're actually a piece of your team, and you're actually keeping them on your team. If those people are starters, I gave you 5 points. So you didn't just draft someone, you drafted someone who is on your team and there. In this case, you're looking at Isaiah Simmons, who is still a starter, even if he's not a starter for that team. I won't lie, there are some outliers here. What I ended up doing is I just valued it here. So I'll just update that data in that vein. When I first started this, I was still kind of feeling my way through things, so I might catch a thing or two that I want to update. And I will update this at the end of every season. So I did come down here and put the most recent draft class from this year, but obviously I haven't scored them yet. We don't know, and we don't know how that impacted all these other ones. So all of this data is as of the end of the Super Bowl of last year. So if they're on your team and they're starting, you can earn up to 8.5 points. If they made a Pro Bowl, I gave you 10 points. I understand that Pro Bowls are popularity contests. They have snubs, they have other things, but I'm trying to find some way to quantify, and I think there was a little bit better, but I basically was trying to say, like, okay, how do I know that the starter I drafted is a quality starter in comparison to the rest of the league? So the Pro Bowl I award 10 points for, because either, look, if the fans are voting, if it's a popularity contest, you can argue how good or bad the player is, but like at least they're getting watched, they're getting attention, people notice them. And if you have them on your team, then that says something. And then if you're an all pro, because that's voted on other human beings, other elements, then I gave that a higher ranking. So I awarded 20 points for a grand total. Every player can receive up to 38.5%. Now, obviously, if they were drafted in 2024 or 2023, they can't possibly be extended. You have to be in the league for 3 years before you can negotiate a new contract. I can't control that, but you're going back 5 years, and as time progresses, I'll be able to continue to update this to kind of see those impacts. For instance, if they got extended, I will keep that data. If they got on Pro Bowls when they were on your team, that I will keep. Here, the fact that they're not a starter for you anymore means you moved off them for some sort of reason. If Isaiah Simmons, in this case, and that's just the Arizona Cardinals, it starts with letter A. If Simmons had been extended and was a starter when he was extended, I would have kept these points for the Cardinals, but I won't give you points for someone else taking advantage of a guy you let go of. For whatever reason, at the end of the day, in my opinion, the reason I created this evaluation was I'm trying to build a team through the draft. I'm trying to draft guys for my team that will play and contribute to my team, maybe even start and excel on my team. So they go and do things on other teams. Well, I mean, they're still in the league, so I get some credit for that, but they're not helping my team. So I can't give myself credit for something another team did. That's the thinking going into it. So in the league, on the team, get an extension. You're a starter, you're a Pro Bowler, you're an all pro. All of that gives you points. And that creates averages. So as I progressed, I started getting a sense for what a good team is, what a great team is. But obviously, I took 38.5%. Well, 38.5 is the max, and these percentages are an average of this. So this draft class, this particular class for the Arizona Cardinals, scored a not 8%, but 0.8%, 0.9 if you want to be nice and round up. This class was not a very good class for them, because even guys are in the league are not on your team in the league anymore. So that wasn't very successful. Meanwhile, though, you're learning and growing. Let me check a thing. Yeah, there you go. So Trey McBride, he got a big extension. So I need to come over here and award those 2 points. He got on a Pro Bowl, so 18.5. Again, I did this after the Super Bowl, before the draft. Again, I will award you. So maybe on the 49ers anymore, but he got an extension. He's made it to, you contributed. So you had a star piece. Obviously, if you get 2 contracts out of a player, you did well. And then it becomes less about the player as they stay in the league. They have more control over where they go and how they're handled. And so that's kind of where the thinking goes to. So look, I know that this valuation is like, look, it's something. I looked and looked. I don't know how anyone measures this stuff. I don't. but now I have a way to measure, and I have things that I think are interesting. First, the overall average, just so you know, the average grade is 9.53. So if your team had a draft class and that draft class had a 9.53 average, that's 9.53%, by the way. Oh, then that's great. That's wonderful, right? However, or 9.53 out of 38. That's really better. If you had that average, if that was how you performed, then you were as good as any other team in the NFL. Like, you were good. So the great team, like, there were some teams that were above 10, which is better than average, and there are only these 4 teams, 2, 3, 4, who were above 15%. So if you ask me, the great teams for the last 5 years in the draft are the Lions, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, believe it or not, and the Ravens. Those teams in the last 5 years have averaged above 15. Like, they've scored 15 or better, and that is almost double what the rest of the league does. So I got these guys who were above 10%, and some of them were better than others, but this is the roster, and I you're going to see overlap. But this is the list of the teams that were better than average, and of course it includes these guys, but these teams were better than average. So you're going to hear the Chargers, the Texans, the Lions, the Broncos, the Cowboys, again, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Ravens. These are the teams that over the last 5 years have drafted better than average. Now you also have the teams that were below average. And believe it or not, you have the Seahawks, Jets, Bears, and Panthers. They are literally the definition of average, which some people are like, yeah, that's not great. Look, 9% is the NFL wide, or 9 is the NFL wide average of everyone. So if you're the Seahawks, Jets, and you look at the Jets and you're like, well, they're not performing well, it's not because their prospects aren't playing well. You're getting Pro Bowlers, you're getting starters, you're building your team. This is, to me, an indication that management and coaching, and sometimes the management can undercut the coaching, and sometimes the coaching just isn't good, or some situation of either one. But at the end of the day, the talent is there. You have people who are playing well, and you've been doing better than the NFL. You just got to get all the right. You have the right players. You just got to get your management. The Bears, they brought in a new coach, and hopefully the idea is they're going to start performing. Now, they've churned through a lot of coaches. The Panthers also churned through a lot of coaches, but the idea is they're at least doing what everyone else is doing based on some quantification, some measurement. These are the guys you don't want to be. The Titans, the Steelers, believe it or not. Now, to me, if you're drafting poorly but you're still winning, like that's hard to do. The Giants, the Saints, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Dolphins, the Rams, Raiders, Packers, Jaguars, Colts, Browns, and Cardinals. All of those teams were below 9%, some of them far, far below 9%. The bottom 5 teams are the Titans, Giants, Vikings, Packers, and Cardinals. And the top 5, obviously, are the Lions, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Ravens are tied, and the Eagles are tied. So they're the 5th best team, even though they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're the 5th best team, but you got 2 people who are tied. So to me, I kind of went through that list and those rankings to kind of give you a gauge on where your team's at and what they've been doing. So these teams over here are the teams that are drafting starters. They're drafting people who are on their team. They're extending their guys. Those guys are making Pro Bowls and all pros. These are the teams who are drafting players who come in, contribute, and even excel on the team that drafted them. And these are the teams that are churning through players. They're churning through personnel. They're whiffing, or they're letting go of talent for other talent. They're just not building on their team. Now, look, you may say, well, the Rams had a great draft last year, but the 4 years before that were less great, I promise. So they may continue, and to be fair to them, they haven't had a lot of draft picks. It's hard to score high, but at the end of the day, they have not been drafting well, even though last year was a good year for them. Uh, we'll have to wait and see, because these numbers are going to evolve now that I've started this. So on one hand, the average for the NFL is 9.53. And if you're at 9 or better, you're average or above average. If you're at 15 or better, you're one of the top teams according to this metric. And how you feel about the metric, again, you have like, I've given you a metric. I've given you something that you can quantify and dispute. If you have other ideas, again, I'm not being sarcastic or challenging. I'm very interested in ways you would estimate how these guys are performing as draft picks for your team. This is just what I came up with. So here's something else, though, because some fans, they look at this draft and they're like, wow, my team drafted, like, I like the 49ers. We drafted, in my mind, I see like Alfred Collins, CJ West, Malik. These guys are all going to come in. They're all going to be starters. They're all going to the Hall of Fame. That is very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. So another way I gave you to understand like the historical trends. Overall, the league average is 2.2 starters per year. According to this metric, the league average, you have a draft class, and 2.2 of those prospects are going to be starters on your team. Now, they may not be starters year one, but they develop and become starters for your team. You should expect, if you're a fan of any team, if you got 2 starters, you succeeded about as well as any other team. That is true. Now, again, we're not talking just day one starters. I didn't look that deep into it. I'm just looking at, hey, when I drafted, what am I looking at? How are my starters? How many starters on average can you expect from their draft? I did go to each team and I said, okay, if I only look at their best draft in terms of how many starters they got, a great draft, a fantastic draft for your team is if you had a draft and 4 of those players are your starters. 4 players develop into reliable starters for your team. So average 2 starters in a draft. Fantastic 4 starters in a draft. I don't necessarily know off the top of my head which team has like the most starters in one draft ever. I want to, like, the Lions that year, they drafted Penei Sewell. They drafted 3 all-pro players in one draft. That same year they drafted Sewell, I think was the same year they drafted Ndamukong Suh. That draft class was an insane draft class. And that's one of the reasons why they're up here. The Cowboys had a year, I think the same year they drafted CeeDee Lamb, they got another all-pro. So you draft a couple all-pros and you draft a bunch of starters. Now you're cooking. The Eagles are on this list for a reason. They draft starters, they draft contributors, they draft all-pro guys, they draft pieces for their team they can rely on. And one of the reasons, like, if you want to say, they don't know about my formula, but if you say like they're cheating on the formula, again, if you draft a guy and they're a starter and you extend them, then they make Pro Bowls. And then, like, Debo is a good example. The 49ers still get all the credit for drafting Debo and being successful. Debo and the 49ers, in that case, they mutually agreed to part ways. But even if Debo wanted out or the 49ers were done, nothing changes the fact that you drafted a person who played a minimum of 6 years on your team, if not 8. I can't necessarily remember what year he was drafted, but you got more than one contract out of a player. You got sustained, performing, starting play out of someone you drafted. That is as much success as you could ask anyone. Now, I also looked at, like, I didn't get the averages, but I went through each team, and for instance, the Cardinals, they drafted 2 Pro Bowlers in all of the drafts in the 5 years. They got 2. They drafted 7 starters total. Yeah, the Cardinals not shining. They only drafted in 1 year. They only had 3 guys develop into starters out of 1 draft class. So they're only above average in 1 class. They had 1 Pro Bowler in 1 year, 2 Pro Bowlers in all of the 5 years I've looked at. So that's a good comparison. That gives you something to look at and something to compare it against. I don't necessarily think I'm going to go through all 32 teams. If you want me to go through your team and how your team graded, give me a note in the comments below, and I'll go to that team spreadsheet and I'll walk you through their draft class. I am going to look at a few and kind of go from there, but I'm not going to I'm trying to find the Lions. I'll stop sharing. I want to go to the Lions because they are the champions of this particular thing. They're the champions of my draft grade. So now that I got them up, I can reshare this screen. So this is the Lions, and they had an amazing draft. So in 2020, this wasn't their best draft. This was probably their worst draft. Let's look. Bad, better, still not that good, but better. And to be fair, their 2024 draft. Now, again, these guys haven't developed yet. So things could get better as they go on. But this first class, which predates the new GM coaching cycle. So this shows you this stark contrast can show you why this organization, why this group got wiped out. And these guys are getting extended and having great success. So 2020 was the year before the new staff, and it was abysmal. Now, to their credit, it wasn't the worst. I remember one organization where their whole draft class isn't even in the NFL anymore. That is really, really, really bad. To have 6, 7, 8 guys and none of them are even in the league anymore is pretty tough. But they didn't extend any of the guys. I don't know if they started. I'm sure Jeff Okudah started games for them, but again, you didn't stick with them. So you didn't draft a starter for your team as a building block. You drafted a guy. He started some games for you, but you decided for one reason or another to move on, which means you didn't hold on to that prospect. But then you go to 2021, and this is the draft I wanted to highlight. Look, most teams, you should be satisfied. And to be honest, any team, if you draft 3 starters, 2 starters, you should be like, hey, you know what? We did what the rest of the NFL does. We did okay. The Lions have a per year all-pro average, like all-pro. That's ridiculous. So this year they drafted Penei Sewell, All-Pro, Amon-Ra St. Brown, All-Pro, Derek Barnes, All-Pro. Starter Alim McNeill is a starter. So they got 3 starters. Those 3 starters are all pros. They've extended a lot of those guys, even guys who are just contributors. They're extending guys. They built their team. This was an amazing draft, scoring an amazing 49%, 49% if you round up. That's incredible. A 49% average. Pardon me. I'm still kind of recovering from a cold. But this is ludicrous. This class is ludicrous. And no wonder they're contending now because they had that. And then they followed it up with, you look at 26, you got to remember the Lions are the number 1 team with an overall average of 22%. So this draft class is still above their own average for draft classes, which is the league lead based on this metric that I made. Aiden Hutchinson, James Mitchell, Jameson Williams is someone I'm looking at, but here's another starter. Pascal is another starter. Kirby Joseph, who's an all-pro, got snubbed on the Pro Bowl. That's all right. I'll take this. Just constantly drafting starters, all-pro contributors. 2023, this is a relatively young group. But even then, they got all these Pro Bowlers and one All Pro just from one draft. The Lions have done an incredible job. And if you're a fan of the Lions, you should be proud. Now, 2024 doesn't look as impressive, but like they're all rookies. They need time. Now, I won't lie, some of these guys came in and contributed right away. Let time work. Let time do what it does. So that's the top team. Let's take a break. I'm going to stop sharing again because I'm going to do two more. I'm going to go over here to the Titans. Not because I hate the Titans, but look, quantifiably, they have the worst score. And again, I want to stress this every time. I made up a metric because it gives me a context. It gives me a measurable, observable, recordable value that I can look at and compare. And I couldn't find anything from anyone else on that. This is something we want to do at this channel. We want to give you quantifiable basis for whatever you're doing. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to share it. You can provide other data. And look, every human's welcome to their own opinions. This channel is giving you some way to quantify what you're saying, what you're thinking. So if you're a Titans fan, you're like, man, we can't draft. My data agrees with your opinion. And of course you use data to justify your opinions, but at least I'm not just speaking out of my own emotional context or my own feelings. I'm looking and doing research and thinking about it on the whole. So I wanted to share that part of it. So now that I have them up here, let's look at the Titans and find out just what they on the whole. So obviously they had one group, and now their new staff and organization, and even now they got a new staff and organization. So one thing I'll tell you is if you're churning through leadership, coaching, you're probably low on this list. And every new regime comes in. And so that might be a way, like sometimes, in my opinion, the owners are the issue because you're churning through. You can't build a team if you keep blowing up the team. And this data supports that assertion. All the successful teams, the Lions, 4 out of the 5 years, same staff. The Niners, I think 5 out of the 5 years, same staff. Chiefs, same staff. Cowboys, same organization. Maybe, and I think McCarthy's been there for those 5 years. So what will be interesting is seeing how the Cowboys draft class this year performs and how the other prospects are rated the year before, the year after. How does that build? Because they blew up their team in terms, they got a new coach, they got new people. I don't know that the Cowboys made the right decision moving on from McCarthy. Now the Eagles moved on and they improved, and then they moved on again. So the Eagles ownership has been able to gain even though they moved on. Now Andy Reid has 3 rings. The Eagles have 2 rings now. Ironically, Reid has a ring that he took from the Eagles, and the Eagles have a ring they took from Reid. So I guess it's kind of a win-win. But if you're churning through staff members, you're not doing too great. So here are the Titans. Let's take a look at some of this. The 2020 draft class. These are their prospects, and 3 of them are still in the league in some capacity. I don't necessarily names, but hey, look, I did the Google searching and looking around. They drafted 3 guys, and as of the Super Bowl last year, these 3 were at least still in the league. But not a single one still on their team starting. They didn't get anyone in the Pro Bowl. These guys, whatever they're doing in the NFL, it's not helping the Titans. Here we go again with 2021. And again, you're looking at a bunch of people, 2 people not in the league anymore. You're looking at a bunch of people who are in the league. So that's nice, but they're not on your team anymore. They're whatever they're doing for other teams, they're not doing it for the Titans. A whole draft class. So 2 draft classes in a row that just cycle completely out as if you basically took the draft off. You had 2 entire draft classes and did nothing with them. these guys might have come in the league and done great on other teams. They might be doing great on the teams they're on, but they're just not. Then you get into 2022, and at least you get something. You got Traylon Burks, who at the moment is starting for you. Roger McCreary, who's starting for you. Chika Okonwu is starting for you. So, hey, okay, 2022, you got some starters. You have gained pieces who are on your team, but I'm a little worried because you haven't extended any of them. Are they core pieces to your team, or are they just guys you drafted recently? And however good or bad they may be, you certainly don't have anyone better waiting. They're not taking jobs from upgrading. You just filled your roster. But hey, at least you got 3 starters. And again, if you get 3 starters out of a draft, you did better than average. Then you got 2023 and a whole draft class, 1 starter. So you're below average. Now, Will Levis, you gave him 1 year. He's not starting for you. You drafted his replacement already. And that's kind of the point, the comparison I'm making. The Lions are drafting more contributors. The Titans are drafting replacements for guys they drafted a year ago. That's an example of what I'm looking at. Now, again, maybe Tyjae Spears starts. Maybe I don't know who some of these guys are like. That guy, I couldn't find any data on him. So he's not even in the league. So you're drafting people. You drafted a guy 2 years ago and he's not in the NFL anymore. Or at least he wasn't when I looked it up in the after the Super Bowl before the draft. So in 5 draft classes, you have 4 starters, where the Lions drafted 4 starters in 1 draft class. This is the gulf between a successful NFL franchise. So look, you got look, I love the new GM. I can't pronounce his name, but the new guy you drafted, I have my feelings on Cam Ward, but I have high hopes for these guys. So maybe these guys really come in and they start and they start lighting up. You got a new GM, and hopefully the ownership gives the coaching and the GM time to apply and work their team. Look, on my shadow draft team, I drafted Gunnar Helm. I promise you, no one wants him to be more successful than me. I think A.U. Maynor is on Ryan's team, so like we're rooting for these guys, literally. I'm not a Titans fan, but this could be the beginning of the turnaround. But you got to get 2 or more starters on your team. I mean, even if you're just drafting starter, and you're not getting Pro Bowl guys, then you're at least building your team and contributing. So, because I'm doing this and I'm live and I love my team, the last one I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my 49ers, and they're doing well. They're doing okay. So let's look at someone who's a little above average, but not great. That's what the 49ers are according to this chart. So, 2020, not their best year, but you get Aiyuk, who made an all-pro list. He got his extension. He's a starter. And look, even if Aiyuk never plays another down, he was a starter. He got an extension. He made an all-pro list. Aiyuk kind of carries this draft class. Colton McKivitz is a starter. Jawan Jennings is a starter. And I think this is the year Jennings establishes himself as a number 1 receiver. I'm afraid that he will then be traded because we can't have 2 $40 million guys on our team, or at least I don't think so. I don't understand salary cap very well, but at the end of the day, 3 starters, that's above average, but 2 would be below. I guess 2 I'd be happy with. 3 is great. 3 starters, 1 pro, 1 all pro. This is a great class, and Aiyuk kind of carries it and elevates that number. And then you look at a draft class as a whole. The 2021 class for, if you look at Trey Lance alone, you already know how that draft class went. You let Aaron Banks walk. I think you cut Sermon. You replaced Thomas. Jalen Moore, you tried to hold on to him, but he got taken away. But at the end of the day, you weren't willing to fight for him. Deommodore Lenoir got an extension. He's a starter. He could develop. So, Hufanga, you let him go. I know he was a starter, but you didn't extend him. He's not on your team anymore. Elijah Mitchell might come back, but that doesn't change the fact that you let him go. So this was a bad class. They drafted guys, they started, but they weren't so good starters that the 49ers were willing to really commit to them. So, yeah, you love Trey Lance to go out there and make a name for himself. Aaron Banks, he got paid, but my thinking going into this is sure he got paid, but the Niners are either right and they're like he's great. I'm glad he's getting paid, but he's not worth that much, or they're wrong and the Packers will win a Super Bowl and he's one of the best guards in the NFL. But they made these decisions. This is a bad class. You got one starter. You drafted Trey Lance to be the future. Brief side note. If you are of the opinion that they should not pay Brock Purdy, let me remind you, this was, everyone says, Shanahan can make something out of anyone. He can win with anyone. Trey Lance was his chosen one. He's on his third team. So before you scoff and you say the 49ers could literally draft anyone and make them look good at quarterback, I remind you that they've churned through some 9 quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy's the one who's taken them to a Super Bowl. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo took them to a Super Bowl. He's not that great. Look, Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion, the 49ers played with Jimmy as long as he could be a competitor. And when they understood that Jimmy had met his cap, they moved on from him. To be fair, they tried to replace him. They tried to select someone. They did. They did it here, right there with this guy. That's when they did it. But this was the guy who was supposed to be our Pat Mahomes, our Super Bowl guy, and he's on his third team. This is the guy who single-handedly saved the ownership, the coaching staff, the administrative staff. The reason everyone in San Francisco still has a job is this guy right here. There's no discussion. Now, Drake Jackson, injuries kind of plagued them. The 49ers, like what I see in their draft class, so I'll come down here. So they drafted one starter, not a great year. That wasn't their best work. Here we go again, though, with a starter, Brock Purdy, a Pro Bowl starter, Brock Purdy, a starter. So they got 2 starters out of this, and and this might change. We might have replaced Burford, but at the moment, he's a starter. These guys might develop. We don't know. But what happens is we get 1 or 2 starters, which isn't great. But when we hit, it's a home run. When we draft a guy, that guy's either off our team quickly. In fact, I gotta do this now because now that's changing. I know for a fact he's gone. I don't know about I know there. So I will update this fully after the Super Bowl. But if I stumble into one I know about, like this was a rough class. Brock Purdy didn't just save this draft class, he saved this franchise, this coaching staff, because his number elevates the rest of it. But I will tell you, if you look at this, if you come out of it and you're at or above 9%, it doesn't matter if you only draft one guy, but he's an all-pro, or you draft 3 starters. Like the dream is to draft 3 all-pro like the Lions, but you can have a successful draft by drafting 3 starters, or you can have a successful draft by drafting 1 all-pro. And if you're trying to excel, then you're looking for those great above great guys, those great classes among great classes. So 2023, again, 1, 2, 3 starters. Now you're like Jake Moody. Like right now, he's the starter. Darrell Luter Jr. may be elevated to starter based on the data I have. He's kind of been a rotational guy. He may get replaced, but Jair Brown might make a Pro Bowl. The 49ers, based on this data, they don't have a lot of consistency. It's like swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. But then they hit 1 home run and it saves their whole class. I see other teams that do that, and that's why they're closer to average than not. And You're going to talk about Debo and Kittle. Those guys predate this data. I started at 2020. I don't have it memorized when they went. Juwan Jennings is going to elevate this draft class. Ayuk could elevate this draft class. McKivitz, the Niners love him. I'm less high, but he's on the team. He's starting. He's doing his work. So Hufanga looked great, but then he had the end. I think if he's not injured so much, it's a different story. But we keep getting like one core guy. I'd like to get it to 2 or 3, and I hope I have a lot of excitement over this most recent class. But we got to see. You get over here. We looked at 2023, and again, we're looking at a bunch of guys who, like D. Winters, might be like he was a starter. He might remain the starter. Robert Beal might, if he's still on the team, he might be a rotational guy. He's not. I don't think he's gonna beat out our new draft pick, but who knows? Then you got 2024. So we got this was a great class for us. Pearsall, Green, Pooney, Malik Mustafa, like all of these starters. And Jacob Cowing right now I have as a starter. That might change. We'll have to see how the season plays out. But when you look at this, Guerendo got some starts. I don't know why I put there as a start. He's definitely not going to. I know why, because McCaffrey was hurt, and I don't. Look, I'm going to keep it there because I want to believe everything I hear about McCaffrey, but everyone said he was going to be ready for week 1, and then he almost never played for us. But even if you look at Pearsall, definite starter, Renardo Green, Pooney, Mustafa, those are guaranteed starters for our team. Those guys are really going to be a part of our future going forward. I would imagine even Pooney getting an extension, Renardo Green getting an extension. You can't extend everyone, but this class kind of elevates everyone else and is still only a little bit above average. But again, this is just me showing you. You get one hit, you get a Brock Purdy, and you're going to be close to average. You get a couple solid starters. You get an All-Pro. Brock Purdy makes an All-Pro. Then this gets even higher. Let me move it to 36.5. Now all of a sudden, he's gonna get extended. That's gonna happen. I don't know why that. Why does that number change? 38, H38. Maybe I just wrote the number down wrong. There you go. That takes it up to 13%. So we'll see. Brock Purdy's definitely going to get an extension. It's going to work there. So you never know. You never know where things are starting. My dog has just entered the scenario. But we're coming up at least on the end of this. Again, I went through my teams. I think I deserve, I want to make sure I do this for Ryan. I looked at his team. Right now, AOW, if we're talking about how teams rank, I created this formula, and this formula is a way, and it's just one way to quantify how a draft class has performed and how a team has performed in the draft. So that's kind of where they've come out with. I just finished looking at the lowest ranking team ever, which is the Titans, the highest ranking team, which is the Lions. And I just finished looking at my 49ers. And one of the things that made the 49ers worthy of talking about is you have these teams that like whiff, and then they hit a home run. And if you hit one of those, it kind of saves the whole draft class because you got that one gem. And then obviously the great of the greats, your Eagles, your Cowboys, your Lions, they're drafting multiple All-Pro guys, while most teams are just happy to come out of a draft with 2 starters. So you still with me, OW? I don't know, it takes me too long to look at my chat sometimes because I'm looking at other things. Well, I'll give him a chance to check on some things. Yeah, he's there still. So I looked at my team. Ryan's team, they're the Bengals, so I'm gonna look at their draft, and that'll give you some context. And I know your favorite team, you like the Raiders, so maybe I'll look at them because you're here. Let's start though with the Bengals. Let me find them on this chart. There are 32 teams here. Give me a second. So the Bengals are above average. They're at 11%. don't want to click that one. I want that one. So let's look at how they performed. So it really helps when you have the 2020 class and you have Joe Burrow on your team. That's a big help. T. Higgins just got his extension. He's a starter. Then you got Logan Wilson, who's a starter. So again, 3 starters on your team. Just 3 starters on your team is already going to help you shine. When one of those 3 starters is also an all-pro, that was a great draft class. It wasn't Lions 2021 great, but this was a fantastic draft class. And there's still times Higgins could make a Pro Bowl or an all-pro list. Those things could extend. And then you follow that up with another class where you drafted 1, 2, 3 starters, all of whom you've extended, and one of them's a Pro Bowl. That's how you build a team that should compete for Super Bowls. That's how you know you're really doing well. Still on the team, so they even have like Sample received an extension. He's a contributing guy to the team. Is he a starter? No, but he's a guy on your team who's helping you out. Evan McPherson, even kickers, like all of these aspects contribute. Then here, 2 starters, so average, no Pro Bowls, so that nothing really carries you up. But you came out of a draft class with 2 starters. The average is 2.2, so I can be like, well, I mean, that's pretty close to average. That's not great. 3, if it's my team, now that I have this data, now that I have this context, if I'm like, look, man, I got 3 starters out of this, I really should be content. I will note again, it matters less where these starters come from. You whiff, and then starter. You still came out of a draft with 3 starters. Maybe you need to like look at your evaluation and take a look at where you're going. But if you're getting starters, you've done your job wherever they come from. So this was a relative bad year for the Bengals, but it's still a decent average year in comparison with the rest of the NFL. Then you get 2023, which was at the moment, I think this is why that defensive coordinator got fired. You drafted all this talent and you didn't let them on. Now, again, starter, right? But these guys are all offense. You drafted Myles Murphy in round 1, and one of 2 things is true. Either the defensive coordinator, this is what Ryan asserts, we drafted a defensive coordinator. We have a defensive coordinator. We drafted this real high talent guy, and then you won't let him on the field. The other possibility is you said, that's my guy, and he wasn't. But still, 1, 2, 3 starters, they did their job in this draft. They did their job. Now you can argue, is he a starter or not? Look, he was credited as starts. Now, 1 start's probably not enough, but if you're getting multiple starts, I got to give you credit as being a starter, even if you're starting in the slot. Then you got last draft class. And look here, I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of zeros because it's barely last year. But year one starter, that's very, very encouraging. So the Bengals are performing above average because they're a good team. All right, let's look at the Raiders because AOWF's here in the chat. So we're going to no secrets. He's my brother. So we're going to go here. We're going to look at them Raiders. Let me find them. Where is you, Raiders? There they are. So the numbers say the Raiders are a below average team. That's what the data and the quantification is. And I'm positive my brother would agree. I would not say they are a terrible drafting team. They're not average. They're below average, and that's true. But they're not the Titans. They're not at 4%. They're at 7%, but they're not at 4%. The 2020 draft is the hall of this is not the class you want. I had high hopes for Bryan Edwards. I really did. You have people you have people in this draft class who are not in the league. You only have 2 people in this class who are even in the league anymore. This is an epically bad draft. Look, obviously there were individuals on here. There's a lot of unfortunate things that happened, and I don't want to. There are things that are more important and they're bigger than football. Human life being among them. But if you draft a guy to be on your team, you need him to be on your team. And if you got a bunch of guys who aren't in the NFL, whatever the reason they're not in the NFL, however tragic that might be, you drafted a guy and they're not in the NFL anymore. Let's keep looking here. 2021, one starter out of that whole class. You got to do better than that. You got to get more. Then let's look at 2022. One starter out of that whole class, and you haven't even extended him. I'm 3 years in, and I got one guy who's starting for you who you extended. That doesn't bode well. Now, look, they're still on the league. You got a lot of guys still on your team, but you're struggling because even though, and look, you're better than the worst. You're not in the top 5 for worst teams ever, because at least you're drafting guys like you come out of this darkness where you got people who are on your team. Maybe they're not starting, but at least they're on their team helping you out. So it's dragging you out of the bottom of the barrel, but still not letting you get to the top. This is a class like there's still a lot of room to grow, but no starters, a whole draft class, and none of them are actively starting for you. Michael Mayer got benched for your All-Pro guy. This is going to look a lot better. Michael Mayer got benched for Brock Bowers. And now look, Tyree Wilson, he might develop. He might wake up. Mayer may not be your starter, but he might really contribute. It looks like the Raiders have said they're done with Aiden O'Connell, but if they're on your team still, they can contribute to your team, and that's something. 2024 is what I would call the hope for your future. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starters, 1 All-Pro. That's up there with the Lions. That's up there with the Cowboys. This draft class is the draft class where you're like, here we go. Now we're talking. And it was a good draft class. It was a very, very 5 starters, 1 Pro Bowl, 1 All-Pro even. This was awesome. This is a class where you're like, all right. And if look, again, I drafted Ginty on my shadow team. I'm very high on JJ Pegue. I'm very high on Dante Thornton Jr. I was angry I did not get him. Jack Beck is a guy I was looking for, and I couldn't get. They gotta do it on the field, but if the Raiders are wrong, I was wrong too, which is one of the reasons why I started doing this. I wanted to know, like, okay, hold on. I remember the first year I really, really I've been tracking the draft since Eddie George was a rookie. And if you don't know who that is, that's how old I am. And I just kept growing and growing. I remember the year when the 49ers drafted Michael Crabtree. And I said, if the Niners don't do well, I can't be mad because they drafted who I want. And you should remember that. I get angry at the teams. Yeah, I think if I think if some unfortunate things don't happen with some of those 2020 guys, I think there's a very different story. I don't think Derek Carr's gone. I think Bisaccia keeps his job. It's pretty tragic. I think it's pretty tragic what happened there, and that could have been a different story. So when I was looking at this, as I've been growing throughout my life, and I would say 3 years ago is when I went full on, like, I'm either really developing as a talent analyst or I need to talk to a professional. One of those 2 things is true. But it was born of a thing where when I sit and watch my team, I want to be fair to them. And before I started doing this, I'm like, you drafted 8 guys and only 2 of them did well. That's actually good. That's actually average. You can't be mad if that happened because that's like what happens. That's what average is. Now, the Chiefs are drafting all pros and you're drafting starters, you need to work on your talent evaluation. You need to work on your scouting department, but at least you have something to hold your head on. I don't think it's fair to expect 15% or better on an average. But yeah, the perennial, like, notice the Bills are kind of in this weird nebulous thing. Let me see if I can find where they score as a whole. The Bills are a perennial contender. I think they're in the 11. I think that's where they're at. No, they got to be way up in the front because Buffalo, right? The Bills are 11%, so they're right there with the Bengals. Once you're average, you only need, and again, I think if you're drafting guys who are on your team and they're starting, that's when you can look at coaching. That's when you can look at ownership. Because if you're drafting guys and they're the better guys on your team, then how are you putting those guys in position to succeed? That's a viable question. So my assertion for you, AOWF, is the Raiders have a lot of reason for a lot of optimism. They drafted a great draft class last year. They brought in a great proven coach. They had another draft class. Again, we won't really know this year. I mean, we might, like, GT makes an all-pro. That's a pinky for the record. GT makes an all-pro. I'm forgetting names. Porter, I really love him. Like, Porter's a starting corner. Thornton is the deep threat. I think he is. I think PU is a starting tackle. Like, you got a starting tackle in whatever round that is. Like, this could, yeah, you could, you could always threaten. So if I'm a Raider fan, I have a lot of room for optimism. And since you stopped by the chat, I wanted to look at your team with you so that you can contribute, you can chat in here. And also, like, now there's reason. And again, if you watch this later, if you want me to look at your team specifically, let me know. I'll fire up the chat or fire up the computer and I'll look at your team. But I'm not, like, I've been at this for an hour and I've looked at the Titans, the Lions, the Bengals, the Niners, and the Raiders. So I've went through 5 teams. I'm not going through 28 other teams or whatever that is. That's not something I have the energy for. But if you have the energy to make a request in the chat, then I will match that energy and reward it with a value. I'm also kind of hoping Dave Lombardi picks this up. I'm going to try to share it to him and see what he thinks based on my data. My assessment of the 49ers is they take a lot of swings because they're swinging for home runs. So they strike out a lot. But when they hit, it's a home run. It's awesome. And maybe they're going to have another one of those drafts where they get a lot. But for me, the 49ers, the Eagles have a philosophy of, we're going to make sure we draft good and hope they become great. That's the Eagles, and why I think the Eagles are holding up trophies. The 49ers are making it and getting a chance to hold up trophies. And to be fair, they held up an NFC title recently. But that line of delineation is the Eagles. I'm gonna make sure I'm connecting with the ball, and if the ball sails out of the backfield, wonderful. But I will make connections. That's what I see in the Eagles draft and why they're in the top 5. The Niners are just above average because they're like, no, we're just going to swing like mad because we only want that one home run. Maybe that's not what they want. I'm sure that they're not. Like, I think they're swinging on talent. They're swinging on potential because they know if they hit on the potential, it'll be amazing. But if they miss on that potential. So for me, what I'd like to see is, and to be fair, why I'm excited about this draft is, to me, the only real, like, well, they took 2, the linebacker they took, and the defensive end. The linebacker they took and the defensive end, and I'm terrible with names. I love my team, but I'm terrible with names. Come on, where are you? Mikael Williams and Nick Martin. To me, those guys are old 49er guys. They're like, man, if we hit, it's going to be awesome. They're swinging hard. Their eyes are closed and they're swinging as hard as they can swing. And if it flies out of the thing, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be beautiful. But what I will also say that's very encouraging is then they're like, okay, we took our big swings, but now we're going to take an Alfred Collins. We're going to take a CJ West. I think highly of Upton Stout. I can't, me personally, I can't get past 5'8" at corner. But man, his tape, his scrappiness, I hope they're right because I'm rooting for him. I'm just afraid of 5'8" at corner. So you might argue he's another big swing. But you tempered your home run swing attempts with some solid hits, and I wonder if that's going to bear fruit. Because that to me is my assessment. And I won't lie, I really hope Lombardi at least sees this, hears it, responds to it. That would be that'd be an honor, especially because I'm such a thing. It is height prejudice, but look, I think quarterbacks who are 6 foot and smaller, I'll probably give you a shot if you're 6 foot. But Dylan Gabriel is 5'11 3/4. And I don't see it. See, not Stroud, Young, Bryce Young. I just think there are positions where height is less important. Corner is not one of them. Now, what I think is they're going to put that guy at nickel, where you're probably facing those littler, shiftier guys. Like there's some opportunity for him there. So I'm excited by this 49ers draft because they took their home run swings. And there are some people who are going to think, like, again, when I look at Mikel, I see what other people see, but I see traits with not as much production. I'm not saying none. That's Shamar Stewart, but you're banking more on the traits than you are on what they've done. But then you get a Collins and a West who are proven, like, dude, I'm really certain you're gonna plug them in. They're gonna do their job. Do I think they'll make Pro Bowls? No. Do I think they're gonna go to Hall of Fame? No. Would I like it? Do I think, do I want the best for them? No, but if they come in and they start 70 games and they do their job to the level they've been doing it in college, then I'm delighted. There's nothing wrong. It's like going to a Marvel movie. If you're going there and you're looking for some sort of award-winning Oscar plot, you went to the wrong theater. You bought a ticket for the wrong movie. I go to Marvel movies to see fights, and I go to other movies to see Oscar performances. It's okay to draft a guy and be like, you're going to start, you're going to contribute, you're going to help my team, and maybe you'll even excel, maybe you'll even be special. But by goodness, you're going to do this, and that's what I think these other guys are. So, I think I've run out of juice. I wanted to at least provide this evaluation to give you the context. Maybe I'll look into it and try to find some way to print this so I can provide it. And if you want a printout, you can let me know in the chat and I'll find a way to get you something. But we're really new, and all of this, like, if I were a smarter human, and I should be, I teach communication. But really, I just wanted to get a thing done. And if you never start a thing, you never do a thing. So I didn't start it the way I should, but at least I've started. So Ryan is better at this than I am. So he's going to get us squared away, and we're going to be Parker fading away into Tony's arms. Yeah. Yeah, that was a touching scene, seeing Spider-Man, like, what's happening. And look, there are beautiful moments. There are beautiful moments. I was a fan of Thunderbolts. I thought I got what I wanted out of that movie. I don't think it was the best movie ever. But I sat in the theater. I enjoyed it. There were moments that I thought were special to me. But this Marvel movie, to be fair, they were kind of banking on, if you get it, you get it. And so I don't know. I haven't seen what others think, but I like the idea of we drafted you to do this, and if that's all you do, no, it's not like special. It's not Hall of Fame, but um it's something. It's something that matters. So thank you for stopping by. If you watch this later, thank you again. If you got a team and I didn't go over it, and you really this fascinates you, by all means, let me know. Like post it in there, and if you ask for it, I will give it to you. This is the last video where I was like, I got to get this video done. I want to share this knowledge with people, because what I want for you with quarterbacks, which I did in the previous video, and with your draft team, these prospects this year, your team drafted someone, and I'm just telling you, if two of them are starters, you did as well as anyone else. If more than that happens, you did good. And if any of them make it to a Pro Bowl, or you get a lot of starters, that's amazing. And now you have some context. But if you're one of them fans who's like, we drafted 8 guys and 6 of them aren't in the league anymore, that's just kind of how it goes. Historically, I looked at every team. That's just kind of what happens. Now you have the same information I do. So when you're watching these rookie prospects, you have some way to gauge how that class compares with history in the NFL, at least the last 5 years. So we hope you enjoyed. AOW, thanks for stopping by. I hope I've given you some hope for them Raiders. Other than that, we're gonna say goodnight. We will see you around. I have no idea what's coming, but now Ryan and I, we're gonna sit down. We're gonna get a little more methodical in what we're doing, and we're going to keep bringing you draft related content. We're going to keep bringing you content that's based on data driven thoughts. If they're opinions that have facts, data driven measured facts that support those opinions, so that we can have some rationale. So thanks. God bless you all. We love you. Good night. And we'll see you in the next video.